When I stopped reacting, it looked like detachment. Silence is often mistaken for healing, and distance is easily labeled as indifference. But this quiet wasn't peace, it was delayed impact. While you were still present, my nervous system stayed busy. There was always something to respond to, something to correct, something to argue or defend. Movement kept me distracted. Emotion stayed suspended. The moment I stopped reacting, all that suspended emotion came down at once. Arguing had become a form of emotional avoidance. As long as we were talking, even fighting, I didn't have to feel the weight of what I was risking. Chasing kept me active, not honest. Explaining kept me engaged, not accountable. When all of that ended, there was nothing left to hide behind. That's when feelings started. Silence removed the illusion of control. There was no longer a way to influence your perception of me, no opportunity to soften consequences with words. The absence of reaction forced me to confront the reality I had postponed. I didn't process the relationship while it existed because I assumed it would continue. I treated your presence like a constant, something immune to loss. When you were still there, I could regulate myself through you. Your replies, your reassurance, even your frustration grounded me. When you stopped engaging, my emotions had nowhere to go but inward. And that inward turn was uncomfortable, destabilizing, and unavoidable. So no, stopping wasn't closure. It wasn't emotional maturity. It wasn't me being done. It was the beginning of grief I delayed. It was the shock of consequences arriving late. It was the realization that emotional avoidance always sends the bill, just not on your timeline. Availability creates illusion. When someone stays, we subconsciously downgrade their value, not because they lack worth, but because their consistency makes them feel replaceable. Your presence felt permanent, your patience felt endless, your effort felt guaranteed. That's where the miscalculation happened. I didn't underestimate you as a person, I underestimated the cost of losing you. I assumed your emotional accessibility meant you'd always be there to absorb my uncertainty, my inconsistency, my lack of urgency. Comfort replaced appreciation. Familiarity replaced respect. And then you became unavailable. That's when my nervous system reacted, not romantically, but biologically. The loss of predictability triggered discomfort. The safety I didn't consciously vow, you suddenly vanished. The absence wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet and destabilizing, and that silence forced my body to recognize what my mind ignored. Regret didn't arrive because I suddenly saw you differently. It arrived because the comfort you provided was gone. Your availability regulated me. Without it, I had to self-regulate, and I wasn't prepared for that responsibility. What I mistook for independence was actually reliance. What I mistook for indifference was emotional dependency I never acknowledged. When you left, I didn't miss attention. I missed emotional stability, and that realization hurt because it exposed my blind spot. I valued you most only after I lost access to you. The regret wasn't about love rediscovered. It was about security removed. Romantic longing is simple. What pulls me back is complicated. I don't return because I miss dates, conversations, or shared moments. I return because unfinished emotions create pressure. Ego doesn't like unanswered questions. Guilt doesn't like unresolved endings. And unspoken words don't disappear, they accumulate. I return because I never fully owned my role while you were still accessible. Closure was postponed because your presence made it optional. As long as you were there, I didn't have to articulate accountability. I didn't have to acknowledge impact. I didn't have to say the things that would make me uncomfortable. Now, without you, those words echo louder. Returning becomes a psychological attempt to relieve inner tension, not rekindle intimacy. It's about easing cognitive dissonance, the conflict between who I believe I am and how I behaved. It's about wanting forgiveness without having earned it, validation without vulnerability, and deep down I know that. That's why returning feels urgent but hollow. I'm not chasing connection, I'm chasing relief. Relief from guilt, from self, judgment, from the awareness that I mishandled something valuable. Romantic desire fades quietly. Unresolved guilt doesn't. Your stability is the mirror I can't avoid. If you were broken without me, I could rationalize my choices. If you were struggling, I could soften my responsibility. But you're grounded, regulated, functioning, and that reality dismantles my justifications. You didn't need to leave, you chose to. That's the part that forces reflection. Your stability tells me the relationship wasn't lost because of chaos, incompatibility, or circumstance. It was lost because of repeated underestimation, delayed appreciation, and emotional complacency. You leaving wasn't dramatic, it was deliberate. And deliberate exits are the hardest to accept. Reflection becomes dangerous when it strips away narratives that protected my ego. When I realize the loss wasn't accidental, but earned, when I understand that your absence isn't punishment, it's self-respect. Your calm without me doesn't provoke jealousy, it provokes accountability, because stability after loss means you didn't need to escape, you needed to preserve yourself. And realizing that hurts more than rejection ever could.